Hi, and welcome to Powerful Spiritual and Feminine Leadership. Create an abundant life and business by being yourself and doing what you love. My name's Thelisafitzpatrick. I am just so honoured to have the lovely Alison Armstrong to interview today. Hi, Alison.
Hi there. Hi, everyone.
Alison is a phenomenal author, educator, and creator of the widely acclaimed Understanding Men and Understanding Women transformational online series. And she asks the question, what if no one is misbehaving, including you? Imagine that. She explores the good reasons behind the behavior of men and women, such as fundamental differences in the ways we think, act, and communicate. She offers simple partnership-based solutions to improve our communication and intimacy by honouring ourselves and others. She's known for her insight, sense of humour, and ability to articulate the human experience and predicament of gender. So welcome, Alison. I'm so excited about that last statement, the predicament of gender. So
Yes.
Many of us women who are very strong-willed and ambitious, and we really value our self-determined lives and businesses, we struggle with this idea of demasculinating men. And I just wondered if you could speak to that question of how we stay true to our power whilst enabling men to thrive in our presence. What's your secret to that?
That's my secret. Well, one thing that might help is to actually define what we're talking about. We started originally in 1991. I was asked to give up, I'm going to say a harsh word, I was asked to give up castrating men.
Oh, castrating men.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
hard word, all right.
Yes,
yeah.
Castrating men.
Wow.
And it was applicable to the times. It worked very well. And then as we had our workshops and we were transforming the way women were relating to men and inviting them to lay down the sword, the word evolved and got a bit softer. And one of the breakthroughs that we had was in conversation with several men about emasculation. And one of the things that was beautiful about the conversation is we were interacting with these men about asking them for what we need, and how much we as women were afraid to ask for a man for something we needed that we thought he couldn't provide because we didn't want him to feel bad.
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds familiar, right? We didn't want him to feel bad, so if we thought he couldn't give us what we needed, we didn't even want to tell him because then he would feel bad about not being able to provide it. Well, one of the men responded in this way that it rocked my world. And this was already probably 15 years into studying men.
Really?
And yeah.
What a revelation.
And what he said was that he said, making me feel bad, saying something that has me feel bad doesn't emasculate me. He said, I'm emasculated when you diminish my ability to produce results. Yeah, that's how he defined it. Emasculation is diminishing my ability to produce results. Something that has me feel bad does not necessarily diminish my ability to produce results. Not giving me information like what you need from me definitely diminishes my ability to produce results.
Oh, that's fascinating, because I think we expect them to be mind readers sometimes and understand that. But what you're saying is a careful articulation actually empowers that man to want to step up and to do what we actually need.
Yeah, I mean, we and to be fair, we found it on both sides that women project onto men that they need what we need,
Right.
And men project onto women that we need what they need.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, when a man is agitated, right, or upset, a woman will reach out to like soothe him.
Yes.
Right? Or she'll try to distract him.
Yes. Yes.
Right? This works with a woman. Distract her from what's upsetting her or soothe her. Right? Now, a man, that doesn't work at all. In fact, chemically, the hormones in his body, when he's upset, he'll react to being soothed as if you've just burned him with a hot iron. Because that's what it feels like. The epinephrine that's in his system makes his skin sting. And so that's why he reacts the way he does. You're like trying to soothe him. He's going, ah, like that, right? And we get really upset.
Yes.
On the other hand, when we're upset, a man will give us what he would want. He leaves us alone. You're getting it. You're getting it, right?
Yes.
So we try to soothe us. We try to soothe them. They leave us alone. It's a disaster. Because we both assume that the other person is like me, right? That you're just like me. And it's, in some ways, I think it's one of the consequences of feminism, which, I mean, the benefits are huge. I would never argue against it. And one of the consequences is the assumption that equality equals sameness.
Yes.
And that we have to act the same, be the same, pretend we are the same, strive to be brilliant and powerful in all the same ways in order to be equal.
Absolutely.
And a lot is lost there, right? In what men have to contribute that is unique to what I call being a testosterone-based organism, versus what women have to contribute. And the other thing I would just say, since you told me about having a Queenscode book club, to update the conversation, since it's been 5.5 years since we published it, what we also invite people to do in the Understanding Men course now, the one we have now online, is to not only lay down your sword and give up feeling justified in emasculating men, but give up the right to emasculate women as well, and to give up the right to emasculate yourself.
I say.
Yeah, so what we've seen is the entire list of things that women do that emasculate men. We do the same things to women, and we do the same things to ourselves. And like we withhold acknowledgement and appreciation from ourselves. We withhold admiration. We actually ignore ourselves.
Absolutely. Yes. We run it and hide from ourselves in the same way that a man would run and hide from or at least not want to embrace us in a time of need or hurt. I think that's that's really fascinating. And with the conversation then around this idea of equality, I loved what you, I guess, the defining principle of the Queen's Code about how a man can't really be strong unless the woman in the partnership is strong also, and the woman being strong can be met equally by a strong man. And yet in Australian society anyway, there's a really big issue with this power imbalance, that because a man's physically stronger, there's a really big media push around domestic violence, etc. And yet a lot of men are also in a position where they're in domestic violence due to the physical power of women as well. Can you speak to me about that, this idea of strength and what that truly means in a relationship? Strength and power.
It's so interesting. I just took down one of my flip charts.
Amazing.
I have a flip chart. About this.
Wow.
Okay. So I think you know about me that I've been fascinated with human behavior probably my whole life. And when I started studying men in 1991, it was with the question, what if men are responding to women? And finding out ways that men were responding to women and that ways that men are not responding to women. That has nothing to do with this.
Yes.
And found out that mostly we have it backwards.
Right.
The things that we're taking personally are not personal, and the things that we're not taking personally, we just think he's a jerk.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should take it personally. we actually did something to bring out the worst in him. And then that led to, mostly because of my interactions with my husband, what if there's a good reason for everything that we do, right? And being curious about it. If you assume that someone has a good reason, instead of just being mad and wanting to, off with their head, so what's the good reason for that? What causes that? What has them do that? And make sense of it, right? So I've been just intense about making sense of men and women's behavior. And then my passion, as you mentioned, of partnership, right? If we could understand why men and women do what they do that's so different, also understand what we do that's so much the same.
Right.
Like, that's one of my favorite things about our course called Understanding Men, Love, and Commitment,
Right.
is to find out how much men and women want the same things so badly, want intimacy, want partnership, want loyalty, want connection, want play, want fun, want affection. I mean, it's just that it's awesome how much we have in common in what really matters to us. And then to see how we can, the way I look at it is like, opposite means opposing, right? So if you have opposite sexes, bam, bam, right? Like, you just keep boom, 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 right? But once you understand each other, there's like this slight adjustment you can make, just a tiny adjustment. And then all of a sudden, these differences become complementary. The difference, we actually become stronger when we can appreciate that we have different gifts to bring to each other, right? And do those gifts come with challenges? Absolutely. That's the predicament of gender. But this whole business about power, Lisa, is that part of human instinct is to constantly be assessing. And this is at a very, it's mostly a subconscious level, although there are conscious moments, but it's always going on. We keep assessing. Who has more power and who has less power. Now, the source of the power, though, can be very different, and it can change really fast, and it's circumstantial. So, for example, in one circumstance, the person with the most power has the most physical strength.
Yes.
Right? But in another circumstance, it may be the person with the most power has the most knowledge. In another circumstance, it may be the person who has the highest status or standing in a community, who has the most respect, right?
Yes.
In another circumstance, it could literally be the person who has the most time. Right? And that's one that's a huge factor these days. That it's the person who has the time to do something that is often given the authority, because they're the only one with the time. So all of a sudden they have power, not because they had knowledge, not because they had resources, not because maybe they had technical expertise, but merely because they had the most time.
Yes.
Can you see it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you think the patriarchal structures that are still in place are conducive to women thriving? What's your perspective on the current? I had a guest on the show actually who was talking about the Me Too movement and how Hollywood scripts were 25% dialogue was for the women, and most of the scripts was 75% were for the men mainly, and that is there an issue with us as women empowering ourselves within the existing structures, or do we need to have a paradigm shift, do you think, in the existing structures in order for true equality to happen?
Okay, I'm going to say something that might get me into trouble.
You're allowed to. We'd love
when I asked
to
about
help.
your audience, you described them as rebellious.
Absolutely.
So
it's true.
Okay, so almost 30 years of studying men. What I've noticed that's related to this is a couple really important things. One is that both good men and good women, what you would call honorable men and women, people who do the right thing no matter how they feel,
yes,
have the same reaction to the assessment that they have more power than other people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So honorable men and women, their reaction to assessing I'm the one with the most power,
yes,
is that they figure out how to use that power to provide for other people.
yes, right. Wow, yeah.
Honorable men and women, when they, in that assessment, in this situation, who has the most power, when they assess that they have less power and someone else has the most power,
yes,
their reaction to that is figuring out how to be helpful, useful, or valuable to the person with more power in order to provide for other people.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's the beautiful thing about humanity is that that's our reaction to power, is whatever we've got, how can we use it to take care of the people that we care about? However we define our people, we'll even sacrifice ourselves to take care of them.
Absolutely.
Now, the other thing that I've learned that's relevant to your question is that what men care about is producing results.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that man said, if you diminish my ability to produce results, now you've emasculated me. Because by their own definition, the masculine is all about getting the job done,
right,
producing results and getting the job done. Now, this is the thing that may be upsetting. I don't have a huge belief in so-called patriarchal structures.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how different it is in Australia, but in the US, there's huge conversation about patriarchal structures.
Absolutely.
And a big part of the fight for equality has, in effect, made them illegal. Right? Like you're not allowed to have men's clubs anymore. I'm a member of the local Lions clubs.
Yes, yes.
Right? It wasn't that long ago that a woman couldn't be a member of the Lions Club. It was a gathering of men. Now, so these structures where they have existed have been disrupted through lawful means.
Yes.
But this idea of do you guys have in Australia the idea of a glass ceiling?
Absolutely. Well, we have the tall poppy syndrome more than the glass ceiling, where someone who tries to rise too high will be cut down to be the same size as the rest. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here there's this idea of a glass ceiling, and that women are only allowed to rise so high, and then there's a glass ceiling. Except if you pay attention to what's happened in the US, honestly, if someone was watching closely, what would be on the news is, oh my gosh, there's a revolution in women taking over corporate America.
That's incredible.
But it isn't on the news, because the way that it's measured is relative to like an ideal,
I see,
instead of measured relative to how it was
in context. Yeah.
So how much has happened so quickly is astonishing.
Yes.
And defies an idea of there being some patriarchal structure.
Yes.
And the truth is that men care about results. So the
mm.
CEOs, right? The women CEOs in the US, the women managers in corporate America, how do you think they got that job? It wasn't from affirmative action.
Yes.
It's because their ability to produce results.
Results.
The men
Yes.
cared more about their ability than their gender.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And that's something that
Fascinating.
people
Yeah.
really aren't paying attention to, that
Ah,
what matters is the results.
yes.
That's what they care about.
Yes.
And here's another bad thing.
Mm.
In the movie industry, they care about what sells.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It's an industry,
Mm.
right? I mean, is anybody in trouble for how many seats in a car are more comfortable to a man than a woman? Is that considered like some offense? Right? Right? It's who's buying the car and who's driving and who's passengering and statistics. And so the driver's side is going to be this big and the passenger side is going to be that big, and the purse hanger. Now that I got in a car and it had a purse hanger on both sides, driver's side and the passenger side. I was so excited that they did that. But it's all based on what's going to sell. It's not. I think we see prejudice where there is just an economic decision.
Economic decision.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily true. So
I hear you, and I love that. So everything you study and distinguish is to give greater access to the phenomenon of partnership. The misunderstandings and misinterpretations between testosterone-based and estrogen-based creatures devastate lives, destroy families, and put our dreams of love and fulfillment out of reach. So when you talk about this hormonal or physical difference, testosterone versus estrogen, do you think that for women to get results, they need to call upon because let's face it, we all have a very healthy balance of masculine and feminine in our makeup. It's actually the hallmark of a healthy person. My belief is that we carry these two energetics in a very balanced way when we are operating in a very effective way inside our lives and businesses. But I'm just curious about what your take is about those hormonal differences between men and women. What would drive and support a woman to have the results that a man has without necessarily putting on her testosterone charge? I hope that question makes sense.
I think it does. It was quite loaded. And there's many things in there that I'm not going to touch.
Okay.
But I would like to give people something that's actionable.
Great.
And it's something that is the source of my own ability to produce results and to provide leadership.
Yes, yes.
And it's the difference between the what and the how.
The what and the how. Okay, yes.
The what and the how. So what's normal is when someone is considering what they need or what they're committed to or what their dream is, what their vision is, as they're thinking about the what, very quickly their mind will say, but how?
Yes, yep.
Right? And I believe that the point of that is that our brains are trying to prevent us from wasting energy. And when we're paying attention to the what, we can end up committing a lot of energy. We can end up passionate, right? We get excited and passionate and turned on, right? And there's this whole, right? The engine's revving because the what is beautiful, right? What could be beautiful to us.
Yes.
And that's not such good news for the brain, right? Like, no, don't get too far down that path if it can't happen, right? So as soon as we start to rev up about the what, this but how comes in. And often that but how, if we can't answer the how very quickly, the what conversation is shut down.
Yes. Yes.
You're with me so far?
Absolutely. I coach on, I hear women asking about the how-to all the time. I'm with you 100%.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So this shows up in leadership, in business and organizations and community, but it also shows up in leadership in relationships and partnerships. So, for example, if you're thinking about what you want to have happen in your business organization, if you can't come up with the how, you'll probably be stopped going down the what trail. And so you'll never have the clarity that exploration would have produced.
I see.
Okay?
Yes.
In a relationship, what I see happen all the time, and men and women both do this, is they'll be thinking about what they need from their girlfriend or boyfriend or lover or husband or wife. They'll be thinking about what they need. And then their mind will go, but how could he do that? But how will she do that? She's so busy. She has so much on her plate. She's taking care of the children. How could she ever give that to me?
Yes.
And then he stops thinking about what he needs from his wife. She stops thinking about what she needs from her husband or partner, because she can't answer his how.
Yes.
She doesn't know how he would do that. He doesn't know how she would do that.
Yes.
So we even try to answer other people's how questions. And we won't even tell them our what if we can't provide the solution to how for them. You with me so far?
Absolutely.
So this is where we get all in a tangle, and we disempower ourselves and others, and we end up emasculating ourselves and others because we try to literally like delegate a what and a how to somebody.
Yes, right.
And the problem is that if I ask you, Lisa, for something, and I tell you what it is that I need, and then I tell you how you're going to give it to me.
Yes.
Which might include when you're going to work on that for me. What are the chances that I have enough information about you and your life and your capacity and your sources of power to be able to give you a how, otherwise known as a plan, to give you a how that's remotely legitimate or efficient or even the way you would want to do it? And as soon as I'm giving you a how, where's your ownership? You're now just an employee. You're an implementer.
Yes.
Right? So what if the partnership is between the what and the how?
Right, yes.
And that each of our jobs as the person who's asking for something is to be super clear about the what.
Yes.
And provide that clarity, answer any questions, describe what it looks like, give an example, even like model it, like hug me like this, right? Actually, instead of it's obvious how you should hug me, actually, like demonstrate. This is, I want one arm here and one arm here, and then I want you to go and count to 7. Right? Like, if we provided the clarity of the what, and then left it to them, how, and is there anything you need from me to do this? Astonishing all the things that can happen when one part of the partnership is focused on what and lets the other part do the how. And both ways, I'm always trying to get Greg to just tell me what do you need?
Yes.
And he there's things he won't tell me because he can't figure out how I'll do it.
I see.
And I like, let me figure that out, and so it's quite human. It's quite human. And
I feel like you're putting a key in a door that's been locked for a very long time. For me personally, and I hope I'm speaking for the rest of the audience, but a door that has been locked and there is a specific key that you're showing us and describing to us today that will unlock an important doorway to a much more resourceful way of operating inside partnership.
Thank you.
But on
Thank
top
you.
of that, I did. I think you've answered my other question, which was about your phenomenal success at committing to this work. You know, did you always know that you had, you know, a destiny in transforming lives, healing lives in this way? How did you come across this work?
I want to answer your question. Can I say one last sentence to finish the other answer?
Sure.
So my answer was to your question, how can women produce results
Yes.
without having to be as masculine as a man can be?
Correct.
Which what you didn't say is that men have 15 to 30 times more testosterone than women.
Right. Yes.
So if a woman wants to provide leadership without exhausting herself,
yes.
if you pay attention to the what and give your whats to the problem-solving machines, otherwise known as men, who love to solve problems. Like one man said, a problem to a man is like a squirrel to a dog.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
They love solving problems. It's fun for them.
Wow. Oh, that
If
is
you
awesome.
let them solve them, you actually have to let them solve them.
Yes.
So if she wants to produce greater results and not exhaust herself, focus on the what, keep communicating the what, keep speaking your what, speaking your what, speaking your what, and people will respond. Like they'll fall in love with a certain what and go, oh, please let me be the one that does that.
Right.
Well, okay, what do you need to do it? So that's the answer to that question. Now I'm complete.
I'm so satisfied. I feel so fulfilled by that answer. I feel a deep sense of fulfillment from that answer. And I, again, feel like the key's been put in the door that's been shut. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I don't know what happened, but your volume became a little quieter to me. Did you change something?
Didn't change anything. Is that better there?
It's still a lot quieter. I don't want your audience to miss what you're saying. It just really went down. So
I might take this device off. Does that sound better, Alison?
Oh yes, much better. Much better. You're back. Okay. All right. So now I can answer your other question. Do you want to restate it or do you want me just to double back?
You double back. Yep.
Okay. So in answer to your question about a destiny and about committing to my work, I'm going to answer it in reverse. So I never really committed to studying men. When I decided to study men, which is, I was the Kimberly in the Queenscode,
I was going to ask you who you were.
Oh, absolutely. I'm everybody in that book.
Yeah.
But I had that moment of my friend being called a frog farmer.
Right.
And I decided to study men and find out, how are they responding to women? But I thought it would take 2 or 3 months to learn everything that was worth knowing about them. Yeah, I was completely certain that they were as shallow as all the women I knew thought they were. And shallow, emotionally unavailable. You couldn't hurt their feelings because they don't have any. And I questioned whether they had souls. They were the semi-soulless humans, and women were clearly much more evolved. Much more. Yeah. So I thought it would take 2 or 3 months, and it's been 27 years because they're fascinating. And they absolutely continue to surprise me and delight me, which is awesome. So I never committed to that. What I did commit to is when I was 28 years old, I made a commitment that changed not so much the course of my life, because I'd always paid attention to people's well-being. I cared about world hunger since I was a little girl and my mother first told me about it. I cared about people being loved and respected. I cared about housing and homelessness, and that 50% of the planet didn't have decent housing. I mean, I cared about that since I was probably an adolescent. And so sort of the direction of my life, or the course of my life, had been set for a long time. But when I was 28 years old, I made something that's called an impossible promise. And that is when I committed. And that's the commitment that I have recommitted and recommitted and recommitted, you know, otherwise known as dedicated, right?
Yes.
And it is the promise that every man, woman, and child would be fed, housed, clothed, loved, and respected.
Oh, Alison, that's beautiful. That's huge. That's
Thank
massive.
you. Thank you. It is. It's massive and it's huge. And what it changed wasn't the course of my life, but it changed the experience of my life.
Right.
Because at the time, 28,000 children were dying every day of hunger.
Wow.
Half the world was technically homeless. More than half the world didn't have clean water. And loved and respected, give me a break, right? And so I'm offering this to you because of the title of your summit, about leadership, right? And feminine and spiritual and powerful leadership. And I'm going to say a very bad word, okay? The moment that I made that promise, I became a failure. I became a failure. My whole life became a failure because it's an impossible promise. I will die before it's fulfilled. I will not have kept that promise. I will have spent a lifetime trying to keep a promise that can't be kept. So I've been a failure since I was 28 years old.
Oh, Alison.
And but this is the funny thing, Lisa. It's the best thing that ever happened to me, because so much of human instinct is about succeeding. To succeed is to live, to fail is to die.
Right.
And so this is what has us be strategic and careful, and we got to make the right move, and we have to be very protective to not make a mistake. And I don't have to do any of that because I'm already a failure. I'm
so touched by the humility in that. That is so, it's the humility is so pure, because there's no ego there, is there? You're not being driven by the worldly things that really don't matter at the end of the day. None of that matters.
And it doesn't mean that I don't enjoy them. I mean, my favorite thing for the last year is my tractor. Right? I was out in the morning. This morning I was out plowing my field to grow hay for my horses and my donkey. The reason I'm sharing it is because needing to be successful, striving to be successful is a prison.
Yes.
It's shackled. It's shackled. And my highest value is freedom. And it sounds so bizarre, and people look at me cross-eyed when I say it. For me, being a failure, I've been a failure for almost 30 years. I am free. I don't have to be careful. I don't have to make the right move. I don't have to make sure that I get that opportunity that's being dangled in front of me that'll have me sell my soul.
Wow.
I don't have to do that.
I'm just feeling so blessed and grateful that you have come on this summit, Alison, right now, because your words are just so powerful and so truthful and so important for the women to hear. And I feel your dedication to that, the bigger cause, but also to this topic of enlightening us to heal our relationships. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on the summit. It's meant the world to me to hear your wisdom today. Do you have any parting words of advice, and where can we find out more about your amazing work?
Well, parting words of advice would be the theme of our online courses, Understanding Men and Understanding Women, and that is honor yourself first, or all is lost. No one else can anticipate your needs. No one else can anticipate your energy level. the time you're willing to dedicate. No one else can anticipate it. They don't have even a fraction of the information you have.
Yes.
So if you're not honoring you, nobody is, nobody can. And that's the thing I discovered the most from studying men, is how much they want us and need us to honor ourselves, because that's how we provide leadership.
Yes.
Showing them how to interact with us. They look to how we interact with ourselves to know how to interact with us. And as we respect ourselves, teaches them how to show respect to us.
That's incredible. I just felt almost figuratively the crown being placed on so many women's heads. It's just profound. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And the best place to find everything is at understandingmen.com. And I mean, that's where our courses happen, online 24/7, all over the world. It's so exciting. And there's articles and there's videos and there's, oh my gosh, there's an abundance. There's an abundance of information there and different ways to help people with what they're struggling with. And it's really my privilege to get to provide it.
Well, it's been an absolute privilege for me to have you in the interview today. Thank you so much for your time. You've changed my life, and I just know how many lives you would have changed and will change. And thank you again for your presence and wisdom.
You're welcome. It's really been my